What's going on, everybody, and happy Halloween to you all out there. Welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the best show on TV, and that is HBO's Succession. We're breaking down episode 3, which was titled The Disruption, an episode in which we see Kendall and Logan and Shiv, and if I'm being frank, everyone in this episode being caught off guard. We're breaking it all down here in this spoiler review, but before we dive into it all, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this spoiler review of episode 3 of season 3 of Succession, well, make sure to like and share this review. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate the support. And in those comments, because we're talking spoilers, ladies and gentlemen, once you've seen this third episode, what did you think about it? Let's talk about your favorite moments, your least favorite moments. Let's talk about some of the deeper meanings that you all pulled from this episode, and of course, what you all hope to see in the weeks ahead in the comments below. So for me personally, this was my favorite episode of season 3 so far, and I love the first 2 episodes, but this episode had everything going for it. Literally, the title couldn't have been more perfect, Disruption, because everyone was disrupted in this episode. I look at Ken and his ego. I look at his father and him just saying, F the FBI, and how that played against him with them being at the gates at the end of the episode. We get that moment with Shiv in this episode, and we talked about it last week in the review. The bond between Shiv and Ken, I think, is the strongest out of the siblings. And yes, she's, helping her father, representing her father right now. He's rolling solo dolo, but they still have respect and they still had a bond. They still had love for one another. But I think that bond was broken in this episode, which we'll talk about. Seeing Tom and Greg share the screen for the first time this season, always golden, and it's just so much I love from this episode, and we're going to break it down, but to me, this was my favorite episode in the season, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. So let's just open up the gates with Ken, who, this was a big theme of this episode, again, about disruption, but more importantly, what's the perception? What are people thinking about me, right? That's the big thing with Ken this episode, as he's meeting with this woman that's going to be writing a piece about him. And again, it's about the image. Oh, how are things with your siblings? Oh, they're great. Things are going good, as we know that's a lie. But in his eyes, he wants people to think things are good, right? And I'm just thinking about the Ken, the progression of the character, who I said in episode 1, season 1 review, or season 3 review of this very show, I'm Team Kendall. I want him to potentially come out on top, which I don't think that will happen, but I am on his team. But I'm just thinking about in real time, right? In our eyes, we've seen this show in the last, 3.5 years, but in the real time of the show, this is just a matter of weeks ago that he called out his dad in season 2 finale. And just thinking, if I was in this world of Succession, I would think Ken is a flip-flopper, right? It's one moment in season 1, he's there for his dad, he wants to represent the company, then he pulls the bear hug with Sandy and Stewie, then he's back in the fold, oh, I looked at my dad's plan and it was better than theirs, and then he's calling him out, a couple weeks later. So yes, he is just like up and down, and the public perception for him has to be, again, flipper-flopper. You can't trust anything this man has to say. So I love that this episode focused so heavily on perception, about ego, and how things turns out for these characters. But let's switch on over to new titles, and I should say the puppets playing their new titles, as we see Rome refers to Shiv as the new president. This is essentially her first official day in the family business, and we see, speaking of first day, we see Jerry trying to make some moves as the acting CEO and having instructions to Carl, and Logan's just like, no, don't listen to her. She's acting CEO. You come to me with the questions that you all have. But hearing Logan having a conversation about Ken maybe coming in, and again, when he hears that word Ken, it's like Baltimore, right? It's just like, you don't say that name. Don't say that name around me. And he says, I want to punch him if he sees him, which I can't. I am so ready for the first scene when we get Ken and Logan in the same room. You talk about fireworks, ladies and gentlemen, and it might be some punches thrown. I can't wait for that scene. But as we move forward, I think it was very interesting to see Logan make the calls to Jerry, as she and them, just Jerry having her 2 cents in, and her just trying to be the CEO, and having Logan keep kind of pulling her back and just like, no, you're the dog on a leash. You don't supposed to talk. You don't supposed to bark. You're just supposed to be the face for the company, to take all the beatings, and we're really pulling the strings. I'm having Shiv pull the strings, so I just kind of love that back and forth. But the conversation gets a little bit more serious because the words FBI get brought up, and of course Logan Gotta love Logan. He gives us his classic slogan, "Oh, F off." They tell the FBI to F off. You gotta leave it to Logan, ladies and gentlemen. But that F off will bite him in the ass a little bit later, which we'll talk about. But it's been a while. It's been so damn long. And talk about sharing the screen for the first time. We get our first scene, and they've spoken to each other, but not been on the same screen together. I'm talking about two of my favorite characters in the show. Tom and Greg, baby, they are on screen together for the first time, and they do not disappoint. As we see, Tom gives Greg the cyanide pills, which are really mint because his breath is stinking, as he says. But we see Tom gives Greg a downgrade of an office, which is his punishment for obviously picking Kendall's side. But really, in this moment here, they have a bit of a conversation, a serious conversation, which we don't see a lot of between the two, but it's a serious moment here. As we see, Tom is, giving Greg the opportunity to meet with an outside advisor, which we'll, get into that a little bit later. And we see that, Tom is just like, yeah, you're going to come with me and we're going to get back on my side. And Greg's like, hold on. I'm still on Team Kendall. He's going to give me a watch a little bit later today. I'm still going to represent him. And again, it's decisions. Whose side do I want to be on? It's just so interesting to see them wanting to have Greg on their side. I'm telling you all, Greg is the secret sauce to the victory, ladies and gentlemen. But let's go back to Ken, and Ken is back at it again, ladies and gentlemen, as we see that Greg has taken him up on his offer. They're in a limo. There's girls in the limos. There's Naomi in a limo, which we haven't gotten much from her so far this season. We talked about her in this first episode of the season. I'm really intrigued to see, does she genuinely have feelings for Ken? Is she secretly working for her auntie with the Pierce family? Does she have her own secret motives? I guess we'll find out. But she's not doing anything so far, but seeming to be like a supportive girlfriend in a certain extent, right? But more importantly, he's in party mode. Again, Ken, we saw, in my tally, it's 1-1 so far. Ken won episode 1. We saw Logan won episode 2. And I think Ken's still kind of going on that high, even though he lost his siblings to join his side. But he's still kind of like in a good mood. He's still winning in his eyes, right? But that ego gets taken down a couple thousand notches by the end of this episode. But we see him playing this like weird game of like good tweet, bad tweet. And in the moment, I thought the scene was just kind of weirdly executed. But it ties back to what was Kendall's theme in this episode. It was about, what are people saying about me? What is the outside world thinking about me, what I did to my dad? What do they think about me on Twitter? What do they think about me on TV? That's the running theme. He cares more about what people think, more so than his actual smart business decisions. So we'll talk about his ego, because that's a big focus on this episode. But it goes back to my thoughts again. Public eye. What are they thinking about me? But let's go to the party that they're attending, which is this committee party. And Shiv and Ken are present, and they lock eyes for a minute. But there is a quick little side scene that we get, and this is the first time that these two characters have seen each other since season 2, and that is Nate, who I think is like a poor man's looking Jake Gyllenhaal. But they have a brief conversation there, which is cut short because the more important conversation is between the two brothers and sisters. We have Shiv and Ken obviously talking since the big explosion from last week, where Ken essentially called her every name in the book, and didn't feel too good about that, because we see in this moment, again, I talked about last week, they go tit for tat, they pull each other's hair, and they scratch each other and call each other's names and whatnot, but they do genuinely care for each other. Like, at the end of the day, whether Khan is running for president, Rome is doing whatever Rome does and trying to get his dad's approval, and the same with Ken and Shiv, they all do care for each other at the end of the day. And it's in this moment here that it is a quieter moment between these two, but we see that Shiv wants Ken to play ball. And even before that, Ken apologizes for his actions. Again, he apologized to his sister because he knows that was a low blow. But it's in that moment, unfortunately, we know where Shiv lies right now in the season, and that's with her dad, as she tries to get in there and say, come on, brother, play ball. Let's play friendly. Cool it with the dad. The shareholder meeting is coming up in a little bit. Don't come into the office. Let's just play ball. He's like, I see you, Shiv, and you're it. You're the one, Shiv, aka you're the puppet. You're daddy's puppet at the moment. It's Rome one moment. It's me last season. It's Khan at some points, which really not really, but you're the puppet right now. The puppet master is controlling you. He has his hand up your ass. You're you're the puppet in this moment. You're that person. So, and again, I think Shiv even kind of recognizes that in the moment. And again, I love when they call each other out and just like, we can come, if they just come together. It's just, and I think they will by the end of the season. But moving on, that leads us to her reporting straight to the puppet master, Logan himself, and we see this scene, another fantastic scene between these two characters. He asks his daughter, his one and only daughter, "Do you trust me, Shiv?" As Logan asks her, and of course he's referring to the scandal and the everything going on with the cruises. And we see Shiv struggles to say, she said, yeah, but Dad, let's have the actual conversation, right? And they have a bit of an honest conversation to a certain extent, and Logan gives the stereotypical, I didn't know what was going on. I get tons of emails every day, and I don't really read them, this, that, and the other. And it's just like, come on, man. How many times have we seen this? He's clearly lying. You don't become Logan Roy without knowing everything that's going on with your business. He knows all the pieces. He knows where all the pieces to his the chessboard are, right? So of course Logan knew what the hell was going on with those cruises, regardless of how busy he says he is. Like I said, you don't get in that position without knowing what everyone's doing in your business that you created. So of course he's lying at the moment, which everyone lies in his family, right? But let's go deeper into this conversation as he kind of digs himself deeper in the hole and goes about how he handled the situation in his position of power in the situation. And we see that he gets into, and this is one of my favorite lines in the episode, when Logan tells Shiv, with the law is people and people are politics and I can handle people. I thought that was such a great line, and I think that that's his thought, again, going back to his son and his perception on the situation. We see that Logan's thing is, let me get to the politics, let me get to the pockets, let me get to the people in charge, versus the other way around where Ken's more concerned about social media, Twitter, his name being brought up on TV programs. So it's very interesting, the older generation mindset that Logan has versus his son having the more hip, more concern about retweets and likes and shares. This is very, very interesting to see those two mindsets. But again, a fantastic line, a great scene by those two characters. But let's go back to Ken's party. But first, we got to talk about my man Greg, who was kind of in the background this episode. We still got to remember he's doing his thing with his grandfather and doing his thing with a lawyer. I think he's going to be a big character in this particular season. But he's a little bit on the background this episode, except for the watch, as we see that Ken is not his sugar daddy. No, Greg, I'm not buying you a $40,000 watch. You're going to buy it yourself. I'm just going to hook you up. That's my gesture to you. And I think when Ken gave him that gesture, that is something that Greg remembered a little bit later in the episode, which we'll talk about. But Ken watches this program, which I assume in this world of Succession, this is kind of like a Bill Maher or like a Daily Show platform. And we see that the young lady does not hold back on her thoughts, on her public reception of what she thinks about Ken, calling him everything misogynistic, being woke, being white privilege, which we got to admit, yes, all of the Logan family and all of the Roy family, they're white privilege to the highest degree, right? But I just love, again, he's just sitting there, he's smiling, he's taking it all in. But again, what are they saying about me? Good, bad? As they say, any publicity is good publicity. So again, we're just seeing Ken taking all that in. It isn't hurt quite yet. These are just other people's opinion, but the biggest opinion that he cares about is his family, which hurts so much for him a little bit later in this episode. But John Doe, time to go to jail. We cut to the scene between Shiv and Tom, and this is where Tom, it's not looking good for Tom, ladies and gentlemen, as he talks about he met with the advisor. He told the advisor, my John Doe situation, I have a friend that's involved with some scandal, how should I handle it? And the advisor, who I can't wait to find out who this advisor is, they tell him that from their position, John Doe is going to jail, aka Tom is going to jail. And this is very interesting here, as we see Tom thinks this is a good idea for him to be the face. He wants to go under the bus. He wants to take the jail time. He's like, hey, Shiv, do you think it's a good idea that I can come to your dad? I don't want anything in exchange. I am going to take the blame, and if I cooperate, I might get a year, maybe a year and a half. I think that's a good idea. And we see Shiv initially say, no, Tom, that's not a good idea. 2 seconds later, within the same conversation, but maybe it's not a bad idea. It looks good. The optics play there. You were the head of the cruise division at that time, so the park division, you might have something there going, Tom. But no. Let's not go with it. So again, at first I'm thinking, is Tom playing her? Which we're going to get to in a little bit, which I think he is. I think he was waiting to see the response. If she says yes, I'm going to go ahead and go with my plan with the advisor. If she says no, maybe I'll hold off on that plan. But I think that Shiv played herself, because why in the hell would you advise your husband to take the fall for this? Yes, he has something to do with it, but you're supposed to support him through thick and thin, your marriage vows, right? But she she agreed with him. She pulled back, but she agreed at the end of the day. So I think that's when Tom said, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with my plan a little bit later, which brings us to the next scene, which we see Tom and Logan having a conversation. And Tom tells Logan, I'm willing to sacrifice myself, sir. I don't need nothing in return. And we see Logan say, we don't have to do that, Tom, but I appreciate the gesture and I thank you for the gesture. And I'm thinking this is a win for Tom. He's like, oh, I'm Team Logan. I'm going to stick with this family. But he makes his way. I thought he was going to go in the room and do like a Will Smith, Pursuit of Happiness, like crying, throwing punches in the air, being excited. But no, Tom has other plans, ladies and gentlemen, as he calls this, just make an appointment with this character by the name of Rex Hanlon, I think his name was. I don't think we've met Rex this season, but that is the person I think he maybe got some advice from, and he's going to meet him in person. Again, I can't wait to meet this Rex character and see who's casting that role. I know we have Alexander Skarsgård in this season. I don't know who he's playing. Oh, Adrian Brody's in this season, so maybe it's one of those two actors or maybe someone else entirely, but I can't wait to see what's going on there. But in that scene, it's important to know Tom's making moves, ladies and gentlemen. Tom planned that conversation to get the ball rolling to protect himself. He might pull his own kin in the coming weeks. I can't wait to see what happens there. But more importantly, we see that Tom gets a call from Greg. And remember when I said about that watch, the whole sugar daddy gesture? No, I'm not buying you a $40,000 watch, you fool. I'll just give you the hookup price. I think that was straw that broke Greg as he calls Tom and say, hey, I think I have something that's going to help you out. And I think what he meant by that was, which we're going to see in a couple of scenes here, he told Tom that Kendall was coming into the office because Kendall didn't want anyone to know. He wanted to catch everyone from surprise. So again, it's just so interesting to see this character is on this side this one week. We see this character leaning on that side. Again, it's just a back and forth. This family is so toxic, and I love it all, ladies and gentlemen. But let's move on back to Ken being reactionary. He's getting all of the tweets. He's getting all of the backlash from the episode, from Disruption, from the girl coming at him, calling him woke, calling him white privilege, and all that different stuff. He decides, regardless of the shareholder meeting coming up in a few days, I'm going to make an appearance in the office to boost my ego, to boost my perception, to boost my image to the public. And I think that was more of an ego move than a smart business move, because he has to remember, the shareholder meeting doesn't just benefit your dad, it benefits the whole family, Ken. So he's reactionary based on his ego decision, not his business decision. So speaking of decisions, we cut to the meeting between, a very important meeting between Logan and what I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's the president's advisor, but more importantly, it's the president's daughter. And they're having this conversation about, listen, I don't need your dad's help, the president's help. I don't necessarily need it, but FBI, that word was brought up recently. Can you help me out a little bit? If I stand tall, will the president of the United States not back away and shut me out? And they have a little bit of a back and forth within that conversation there. Again, remember, Logan's great line this episode, law is people and people are politics. He's trying to play in the politics, ladies and gentlemen. And again, that wasn't a good move on his part, where things play out a little bit later in the episode. But again, I love that line. But we see that Ken, which was one of my favorite scenes in this episode, when Ken is again, it's just, and let me know in the comments before we get to the next scene, which route is the smarter route? Is it Ken's way of going to social media, the social zeitgeist, being in that conversation on television and public perception, or is it smarter for what Logan's doing? Talk to the pockets, talk to the politics. Who has the better decision right now? Let me know in the comments below. But again, this scene was fantastic as Ken makes his way to Waystar headquarters, and we see Logan is freaking out. He's like, I don't want him nowhere near me. Do not let him in. It was just so incredible to see, again, how the presence of Ken can affect his dad and all the stuff going on right now. This scene did not disappoint as we're watching him making his way to security, and security doesn't know what to do. They can't say no to Ken as Hugo comes down. Colorina comes down to try to let him in. Everyone's freaking out at this point. I love this moment. And then we even see Tom was instructed by Logan to go slow him down and get a little bit of a temperature on Ken. They have a bit of a moment, and we see that Ken even tries to make a move towards Tom at this moment as he says, another life is possible, brother, as Ken tells him, you can come on my side if you want to. Things are a little bit better. But speaking of a hilarious scene and speaking of temperature, I don't know how long I laughed. It had to be at least 5 minutes straight. When Ken goes back in his office, he's locked out of his computer and he notices the temperature is low, right? Or at least he thinks everyone's freaking out. No one's thinking logically right here. He's like, man, it feels cold in here, right, Jess? And talks to his other guy and they're like, no, it's pretty average in here. It's about 68. And we see King, oh, you got to be kidding me. It's more like 65, 62. And Jess's face, I don't know. It's such a small scene, but it was just so golden to me. Again, it just shows you no one's thinking logically. Everyone's just kind of reacting off of just emotions and ego and not thinking about the business. It's just such a funny moment. But seeing Logan and his head, this moment was pretty intense to me. Logan sends in his head of security, which I can't remember that character's name. I don't even know if they've given him a name. He's just the guy. He goes into Ken's office and just looks at Ken and just says, I'm just checking in. I know you. And when Ken saw him and heard him say that, I just go back to, I can't remember the exact episode, but you all remember after the incident with the kid dying and obviously the cover up and all that stuff. And when the head security took Ken down to the basement and walked him through the whole PR situation and just seeing how Ken had to go through that security guy knows who Ken is and knows all his dark and deepest secrets and the skeletons in the closet. So hearing Ken say that again, it just kind of brought him down to earth when he heard that moment. It's just, again, the way that these characters play the moments and the secrets that we know, it's just such great television, such great writing. But time for Shiv to have her moment, or should I say time for the puppet to talk as she is giving her speech. And unfortunately, this is what I meant by the bond being broken. We hear this music playing. It gets louder and louder as she's talking to the people of Waystar, the employees of Waystar. And you guys heard the lyrics of the song. It's very obvious. It's referring to the cruises and the allegations going on. And obviously, we see Shiv goes to Ken's office. The speakers are there, alluding that he was the one that did that. We see Shiv gets emotional. She starts to cry, spits in his book. And this is where I mentioned they've always had the tit for tat, but they've always had respect. They've always had love for one another. But I think, not to say it's not recoverable, they're never going to talk again. But I think at the moment, that strong bond that was there, no matter through thick and thin, I think that's gone for right now. That has been severed as we see Shiv makes her move a little bit later. But speaking of Shiv, going back to her, she takes her shot, ladies and gentlemen. She takes her shot at her big brother as she wants Rome and she wants Connor, who, again, those two characters were kind of in the background as well, wasn't too heavily involved, which I'm okay with. But we see that she wants her older brothers to sign this letter, and this is a letter of low blows to the highest degree, calling her brother a drug addict. He's not thinking straight, misogynistic. We'll talk about some of those descriptive words that she used a little bit later, but they're not gonna sign this. And I thought it was so funny when Rome's like, I'm not gonna sign it because he taught me how to pee and aim a pee when I was a kid. And it's like, that's not a reason not to sign Rome. But I think, again, going back to the brother, the siblings, the love and hate relationship, and more particularly the love, they can take shots at their dads. They can all agree that their dad's a jerk and they can believe he's Teflon and can't be broken, but they've never really taking shots at each other publicly, at least, right? We see them talking about each other in each other's faces every single week since season 1, episode 1, but they never publicly have spoken about their siblings in that type of manner. So I think Rome and Connor are yeah, we can say that to each other, but we never show our dirty laundry to the public in this certain extent. Yeah, Ken can go at our dad. Again, he's Teflon. It's really not going to affect him to a certain extent, but we don't really come at each other to the public, Shiv. So it was really interesting to see them kind of take that stance against their sister when it came to calling their brother out with all of his flaws, right? So I thought that was very, very interesting to see that they are going to protect themselves versus, stuff that their dad has said about them in the past. Really interesting moment, really interesting scene with those two characters. But going back to Ken, his laundry being out in the world as he's going to make his way to that Disruption show, and he's just can we not bring this up? Can we not talk about that? And the writers are like, no, this is a comedy show. We're going to bring that out to the forefront. But that leaves Ken, which I think for the first time in this season, as he is hiding from this letter that's out there, he doesn't make his appearance to the show, but we see him first time this season. He's in his head. He's in his feelings. He has no smiles. There's no laugh. There's no confidence. There's no ego. It's just him alone by himself in that room. And speaking of ego, his ego got knocked the hell out because, again, we see that he ghosts his appearance, and the lady kind of reads the letter to a certain extent, talking about that, Shiv doesn't hold back. She calls him a misogynist. She calls him, being, just a terrible person to a certain extent, a drug addict, makes bad decisions. You can't trust him. And there's a lot being said, and again, this is the first time that Shiv has taken a blow at her siblings, and it cut deep, and it really affected Kendall, as you all see in the scene. So very, very big moment for those two characters. But as we wrap up the episode, we see Rome, who's about to visit Jerry, is interrupted by his father being in his office a little bit late, and this is where Logan, again, he's just a loose cannon. He calls his son a very inappropriate name in regards to the interview that Rome had about a childhood memory that he shared with his dad. But more importantly, it's in this moment that, speaking of Logan and his ego being bruised, and again, law is people, people is politics. Well, you got 20 FBI agents downstairs, Logan, as they have arrived. And remember what you said earlier, F off? Well, they're not effing off. They're going to break the doors down. They're going to get their crowbars out, as Jerry alludes to. You can't blow this away. You got to face it head on. As we see, Logan says, well, fine, we'll cooperate with the FBI, which seeing that moment again, him just F this, F that, F off, it's right at the front gates. He talked to the president's daughter a little bit earlier. That probably accelerated the process. And again, seeing both of our two characters, which again, episode 1, I give to Ken. Episode 2, I give to Logan. Episode 3, it's an even draw right now because that fight, that battle between the family, it's disrupted with the FBI being at the front gate. It's disrupted by Ken because his sister called him out. So right now, their path of leadership and being, the head of the honchos per se is disrupted with the things that are in front of them right now, which I love that in this show. But wrapping it up, we see Tom is doing his speech about values. He learns that the FBI's presence is there. We end with Shiv seeing on the news that the FBI is there. And remember how we opened the episode with Ken meeting that publicist, about writing about him, about perception, about his ego, about all that stuff. We end with him being broken down, being, alone by himself. He sees that the FBI is at his daddy's front gates, and we see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he has a little bit of a smirk on his face knowing that the FBI is there. What a fantastic episode of television, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I say it every week, and I mean it. It's the best show on TV, and this shows you why. The writing was sharp. The performances at this point are some of the best performances you're going to see on TV. The lies, the twists, the turns with Tom and him speaking to his advisor, making his power move in the coming weeks, and Shiv telling him, yeah, you should go ahead and throw yourself on the bus. Really, not really. Seeing Tom Greg giving Tom the information about Ken earlier, and still got to remember that Greg is still making his moves. Seeing the FBI at the front gates, and it's just so much goodness going on, ladies and gentlemen, and I am just loving this season so far. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Let me know yours, your pros, your cons, your thoughts, your theories. Let's talk about it in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Again, happy Halloween to you all out there. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're having a good time, having some cool costumes that you all wore. Maybe someone wore a Succession character during Halloween this season, put it on their best Logan Roy impression, or Kendall or Shiv. But again, I appreciate every single one of you all watching this review every single week. I love the show and I love interacting with you all. So before you leave, make sure to like the video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and of course subscribe to the channel and hit that bell. That way you don't miss any of my future reviews. Hope you enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe to my channel, check out my other content. I'll see you next time.